Maybe I should get a closer shot.
One day, a strange meteor came crashing down to Earth. In the vast desert of New Mexico, a lone hunter spotted something fall nearby. Curious, he went to check it out and found a smoking crater. But as he approached, something crawled out of the hole and attacked him. He tried shooting it, but the creature was far too strong, and he didn't survive. Something new had arrived. This is Xeno. Meanwhile, in a quiet suburban home, a high school girl named Renee was burning her dead pet lizard in the backyard. When she came inside, her mother, Linda, had just woken up. Renee asked if she could be driven to buy food for her other pets after school. Then her stepfather, Chase, stumbled in. Renee despised him, mostly because all he ever did was drink. When he tried to talk to her, she ignored him, which only made him angry. As she left for school, she scratched his car out of spite.
Given that Seymour was a World War II veteran. Renee? Oh, go on. All right. Okay, calm down.
At school, Renee kept to herself. She didn't have many friends since she was new in town. The only person she really talked to was Gil, another loner like her. Later that afternoon, she was frustrated because her mom was late to pick her up. She soon realized her mother hadn't even gone to work that day. Renee suspected another argument with Chase, but her mom brushed it off. When she got home, Renee fed her pet snake a mouse she just bought, then sat in her room playing guitar for her animals. To her, they were more than pets, they were her only friends.
Please eat, sweet snake.
Really might be my best friend.
That night at dinner, Chase was drunk again. He accused Renee of scratching his car, but she stayed silent. Then he complained about a bad smell in the microwave. Renee admitted she had used it to heat a dead mouse as bait for her snake and promised to clean it later. Chase was disgusted and furious. He threw chips at her and yelled, calling her dirty.
It's disgusting.
You're the one eating pepperoni.
What the hell's that got to do with the single thing I just said?
Stuff's filled with pig anus and scrotum, but maybe you like scrotum.
Renee, honey, don't.
Renee, fed up and angry, stormed out of the house, grabbed her motorcycle, and rode off into the desert. Under the dim desert sky, she found an overturned car. Curious, she stopped and saw something moving nearby, a dark creature trapped under a metal snare. Its leg was stuck, and it struggled to break free. At first, Renee was terrified and tried to leave, but seeing it in pain made her hesitate. Against her better judgment, she freed the creature and quickly rode away into the night. The next morning, on her way to school, Renee noticed 3 helicopters flying overhead. They had to be government aircraft searching for the creature she saw. That's when she got an idea. During lunch, she found Gil and asked to borrow his video recorder. He was reluctant, but she promised to help him with his homework in return. Eventually, he agreed and lent her the camera. When Renee got home, her mother and stepfather were waiting. Chase tried to sound sincere, promising that he would stop drinking and hoping they could get along. But Renee stayed silent. After he left, her mother asked why she didn't say anything. Renee was still upset, knowing Chase hadn't actually apologized for anything. She went straight to her room, grabbed a few tools, and quietly sneaked into Chase's room. From there, she stole his car keys and headed outside. Inside the car, she found his pistol and a bunch of small liquor bottles scattered around. Disgusted that he was still drinking, she slammed the door, grabbed her motorcycle, and rode off into the desert. When she reached the site from last night, everything was quiet. It looked like the government hadn't found this area yet. But signs of destruction were everywhere, animals torn apart, and splashes of green blood. Through her binoculars, she spotted the creature again. It was still there. Renee fired the pistol into the air, trying to get its attention, but the creature didn't move. She turned on her video recorder and began filming, realizing she might be the first person to ever capture something like this. The thought of fame and fortune flashed through her mind. She moved closer and used a cutter to free the trap still clamped to its leg. The creature stayed motionless, so Renee assumed it was dead. But as she reached for the camera, it suddenly lunged up and shoved her aside. She panicked, but strangely, it didn't attack. It just stood there. Renee slowly realized the creature wasn't dangerous. She tried feeding it fruit, but it kicked the food away, clearly not interested. Then she heard the distant hum of helicopters. Government search teams were on their way. Renee looked at the creature, warning it in her mind to stay away from them. After all, in every movie she'd seen, the people in helicopters were never the good guys. She rushed home, checking her things as soon as she got inside, only to panic when she realized Chase's gun was missing. It must have fallen somewhere in the desert. Before she could leave again, Chase, drunk on the couch, asked if she'd seen his car keys. She lied, saying she hadn't. Then she noticed the empty bottle on the floor. So much for his promise. Chase threatened her, telling her not to tell her mother about his drinking, or he'd make her regret it. Renee didn't stick around to argue. She stepped outside, only to freeze when she saw a familiar figure in the dark. The creature had followed her home. Worried someone might see it, Renee tried to lead the creature back toward the desert. But as they walked, it suddenly reached out, extending a strange tentacle that latched onto her face, lifting her completely off the ground.
Hello?
A few moments later, Renee regained consciousness. Strangely, she didn't feel afraid anymore. Instead, she felt sorry for the creature and gently wrapped her arms around it. Somehow, she sensed it wasn't dangerous. She decided to take it home and told it to hide in the basement. The creature looked like a giant cockroach, so Renee gave it a name, calling it Croak. Before leaving for the day, she told Croak to stay quiet and not move while she was gone. Meanwhile, back in the desert, government agents were already sweeping the crash site. One of them, Agent Brown, reported that there were still no signs of the creature. Their leader, Agent John, ordered the team to move faster before it was too late. At home, Renee quietly waited for her mother and stepfather to leave for work. Once the coast was clear, she snuck Croak inside. She pulled out some meat from the fridge and placed it in front of him, but Croak wouldn't eat a single bite. Back at school, Gil noticed that Renee hadn't shown up and started to wonder where she was. At home, Renee spent the day with Croak, introducing him to her other pets in her room. She made it clear he wasn't allowed to eat them. Then she sat down with her guitar and started singing softly. While she played, she noticed Croak's back trembling. He was scared. Renee reassured him, promising she would protect him for as long as she could. Everything seemed peaceful until Renee heard her mother's car pulling up. Panicking, she rushed to hide Croak back in the basement. When Linda walked in, she was shocked to see the house in complete disarray. Just then, Gil showed up to collect his video camera. Linda told him to grab it himself from Renee's room. After making sure Croak was safely hidden, Renee went back upstairs and found Gil watching the footage of her encounter with the creature. He was stunned, unable to believe what he was seeing. Renee demanded he hand over the tape, but Gil refused, insisting she explain everything. When he threatened to take the video to the police, Renee had no choice but to take him downstairs to the basement to show him the truth. In the basement, Renee stopped Croak from attacking Gil. But the moment Gil saw the creature's terrifying form, he froze, fainted, and even wet his pants. When he finally woke up, Renee calmed him down, assuring him that Croak wasn't dangerous. She gently stroked the creature's back, showing that it could be trusted. Before leaving, Gil handed her the videotape and promised to keep quiet. Renee warned him not to tell anyone about what he had seen. What she didn't know was that Agent Brown had been watching them from a distance, recording everything. That night, Renee tried again to feed Croak with pieces of meat, but he still wouldn't eat. The next day at school, she told Gil that Croak hadn't eaten since yesterday. Gil, thinking like a movie buff, suggested that maybe the creature only ate live prey, like a T-Rex. He proposed taking Croak out that night to a wildlife reserve, a place he believed the government wasn't monitoring. Later that night, Renee and Croak met Gil at the edge of the conservation area. Renee urged Croak to eat the animals there, and in an instant, the creature darted off into the shadows, hunting and devouring everything in sight. Watching this, Gil began to realize they couldn't hide the creature forever. But Renee refused to accept that. She insisted they could still keep it a secret. After returning Croak to the basement, Renee came back upstairs. But Chase was waiting for her, drunk and furious. He accused her of stealing his car keys and said he had opened the car with a spare key, discovering that his pistol was missing. He was sure Renee had taken it. Cornered and terrified, she admitted she'd lost it somewhere in the desert. That only made him angrier. Down below, Croak could sense Renee was in danger. When Chase lunged at her, she screamed for help.
Because respect is fear.
Linda rushed out and pulled her daughter to safety. At that same moment, Croak burst through the basement wall, shaking the entire house like an earthquake. When things finally settled, Linda had had enough. She ordered Chase to leave the house for good and apologized to Renee, realizing how blind she'd been. Renee, still shaken, said nothing and quietly went back down to the basement. The next morning, as Renee prepared for school, a car stopped in front of the house. Agent John stepped out, flashing his badge and identifying himself as a government officer. He offered to drive her to school. Inside, Linda noticed that the tap water wasn't running. The pipes must have been damaged from the night before, so she called a plumber to come fix it. Meanwhile, in the car, John told Renee that a gun belonging to someone named Chase had been found out in the desert. He added that a girl's fingerprints were on the handle. Renee tried to lie, saying she just used it for target practice, but John didn't buy it. He handed her his card and told her to call him when she was ready to tell the truth. If she didn't, he warned, the next time they met, he'd be bringing an arrest warrant. At home, Linda called a plumber to fix the water pipes in the basement before heading out to work. The plumber went down alone, carrying his tools, unaware of what was waiting for him below. As he started inspecting the pipes, he came face to face with Croak. Startled by the creature's monstrous appearance, the man panicked and swung his wrench at it. Croak retaliated, striking back in defense. Injured and terrified, the plumber fled the house, speeding away in his truck, until suddenly, another vehicle crashed into him on the road. Later that day, after school, Renee saw the wrecked truck by the roadside. Linda arrived soon after, clearly shaken. Renee couldn't hide her frustration. She still blamed her mother for never believing her and for forcing them to move to this remote place after her father's death, as if trying to erase his memory completely. Linda apologized, explaining that life in the city had become too hard. She then mentioned the plumbing issue and said she had sent a repairman down to the basement earlier. For now, they would have to use bottled water. Saddened, she went inside, unaware of the truth that lay below. The moment Renee heard that, panic washed over her. If the plumber had gone into the basement, he must have seen Croak. She ran downstairs and froze at the sight of blood splattered across the floor. Then she found Croak, wounded and trembling. It all made sense now. The terrified plumber must have fled in fear, causing the crash she saw earlier. Renee finally realized she couldn't keep hiding Croak forever. Keeping him locked away like this was only putting everyone in danger. Elsewhere, Gil was approached by Agent Brown, though what they discussed remains unclear. Meanwhile, Renee made her way to the conservation area, leading Croak through the woods. Once there, she called Gil and asked him to meet her. Before long, Gil arrived. Renee told him her plan. She wanted to stay there with Croak until things were truly safe. Gil tried to reason with her, saying it was a crazy idea, but Renee was determined. He also admitted that government agents had come to question him earlier that day, though he assured her he hadn't revealed anything. Renee thanked him and told Croak to stay hidden while she returned home to pack. She borrowed Gil's tent, and since it was still at his house, he left to fetch it. Back home, Renee quietly packed a small suitcase. She sat down for a moment, then wrote a letter for her mother, who was fast asleep. Before leaving, she opened the cages and let all her pets go free, knowing she might never see them again. Just as Renee was about to leave in Chase's car, he appeared out of nowhere, grabbing her and pointing a gun at her. Now he had proof that she'd stolen his keys. He dragged her back inside, drunk and furious. Holding both Renee and Linda hostage, he blamed Renee for ruining his life and getting him thrown out of the house. In a desperate struggle, Linda tried to hold him off and told Renee to run. Renee bolted for the door, but outside, Chase caught her again. He aimed the gun, ready to shoot, when suddenly Croak appeared from the shadows. The creature lunged at Chase, knocking him down and biting him with violent force. Renee tried to stop it, but it was too late. Chase was already dead. Croak backed away and fled into the dark forest. Moments later, Gil arrived, horrified at what he saw. Renee tried to explain that Croak had only been protecting her. But Gil didn't believe it, insisting the creature was dangerous. Renee stood her ground, saying Croak wasn't a monster. Before she could say anything more, John and his team emerged from the house. They had been watching the whole time. The agents quickly restrained Renee, attaching cables and sensors to her head. She cried out, saying Croak was gone and wouldn't return. But Agent Brown reported that Renee had already formed a deep connection with the creature. John decided to test that theory. Without hesitation, he grabbed Renee's hand and broke one of her fingers. She screamed in pain. The reaction worked. Somewhere out there, Croak felt it. Within seconds, The creature roared back to life, storming toward the agent's base. The team scrambled to capture it, using electric traps and containment gear. Not long after, Croak was locked inside a secure holding room at the police compound, waiting for a transport unit to arrive. John ordered Brown to check on Linda, while he went to see Renee, who was just regaining consciousness. Her hand was bandaged, but her anger burned through the pain. She begged him to release Croak, insisting the creature wasn't dangerous. John calmly explained that she wasn't the first human to bond with one of these things. Every person who had formed that connection had eventually died. According to him, these creatures were sent by intelligent beings from another world to study humanity. That was why the government wanted Croak, to understand their technology and find any weaknesses. He also revealed his plan to study Renee herself. If she refused, he said, her mother would suffer the consequences. After John left, Linda entered the room, shaken but relieved to see her daughter alive. She asked what had happened, but Renee stayed silent. Linda apologized, admitting she should have listened to her sooner. Brown then came in and ordered Linda to leave. Outside, Gil had followed the agent's trail to the police station. But seeing the number of guards and vehicles, he stayed out of sight, waiting. Inside, Renee sat alone, her mind racing. She remembered what had happened before, how Croak could sense her pain. Slowly, she pressed her broken finger again, hard enough to make herself cry out. Far away, Croak stirred violently. It felt her pain. With a sudden burst of rage, it broke free from its restraints and tore through the facility, slaughtering the guards one by one. John and Brown rushed into Renee's room, shouting for her to stay put. Outside, chaos erupted. Croak smashed through walls, roaring as bullets tore through the air. The creature broke down the door, knocking both agents unconscious. It moved toward John, ready to kill him, but Renee stepped in, stopping it. She refused to let Croak become the monster everyone feared. Grabbing the key from one of the fallen agents, she unlocked her cuffs and ran. Renee called out to Croak, and together they fled down the corridor. Behind them, John regained consciousness, his face twisted with rage. He reached for a massive weapon and prepared for one last hunt. In another part of the building, Linda walked in and froze. Bodies were scattered everywhere. The aftermath of Croak's rampage was horrifying. Outside, Renee was trying to get Croak into a car when John suddenly appeared at the entrance, opening fire on them. Bullets ripped through the air, shattering glass and tearing into the vehicle. Renee ducked behind the car, trying to shield herself, but the rounds punched through the metal. She shouted for Croak to take cover, but instead, the creature charged forward. John kept shooting, emptying his weapon into the alien, but Croak didn't stop. It lunged, striking him with a fatal blow that sent him crashing to the ground.
No, you're gonna kill her!
As the gunfire stopped, the silence that followed was deafening. Renee ran toward Croak, dropping to her knees beside him. The creature lay still, lifeless. Linda and Gil rushed over, pulling Renee away, urging her to leave. She didn't want to go, but there was nothing more she could do. Months passed. Renee recovered, slowly finding her way back to normal life, though part of her would never truly move on. Meanwhile, in a secure research facility, a group of scientists prepared to study Croak's body. They surrounded the examination table, unaware of what was about to happen. Then, without warning, Croak's body twitched. Its eyes snapped open. In a flash, it rose from the table and attacked, unleashing chaos all over again. So the moral of the story is, if you find a giant alien cockroach in the desert, maybe do not bring it home like a stray cat, unless you are fully prepared for property damage, emotional chaos, and the occasional accidental murder.